Welcome back everybody. Tabletop Toki here, and in today's video, we'll be getting a sneak peek at an upcoming Kickstarter project from Uchibacoya, which is Sweetlands. Huge thanks to Uchibacoya for providing a copy for review so that I can share it with y'all here today. But without further ado, let's jump into an overview of Sweetlands. In Sweetlands, the object of the game is to gain the most victory points by building a prosperous land of sweet. Players will be getting a unique player board that will house their production, resources, property tokens, and unique player abilities, as well as a main map board and industry board. The industry board will help you track industry as you move along and progress, as well as your food. We also have a round support board, which will give players a little extra boost, and the main board, which provides us with various different prosperity tracks for endgame scoring and in-game bonuses, action spaces, and skill tokens. The game is going to be played over the course of 5 rounds. In each of those rounds, players will be taking actions either by discarding citizen cards from hand to take action slots. The more that an action is taken, the more expensive those spots will become throughout the course of the round. They can alternatively pay money to employ the citizens, gaining an instant effect, sweets tags, which will be used and referenced by other cards to trigger combos, and potentially paying diamonds to automate these cards by tucking them under their specific region. These actions in combination with skill tiles will allow players to expand their land of sweets. This will be done by placing terrain tiles, which will get you bonuses, bridges, which will help you develop those terrain tiles, gaining you more bonuses, taking property tokens, which will gain you even more bonuses. And as everyone knows, the ultimate goal here is to make those properties enticing enough for the cookie rabbits to move in. At the end of 5 rounds, players will be rewarded for any in-game points that they've received. They will also get victory points for the amount of unique cities that they've built, how far they've moved up on the industry track, potential points for building certain types of buildings, and of course, a lot of victory points from the various prosperity tracks that they've chosen to pursue. That should give you an overview of how Sweetlands plays. Now let's get into my thoughts about the game in general. The best term for my initial reaction to Sweetlands was cautious optimism. I personally really love Euro-style games, especially chunky ones, and I also love candy and bunnies. And those two things usually don't see a lot of overlap in the board gaming world. So I was excited to see something new in that regard. But again, just because it's things that I like doesn't mean that it's going to be a necessarily good game or good product. Upon reading the rules, I was seeing a lot of mechanics that felt familiar, that looked like they functioned in very straightforward ways: worker placement, tile placement, multi-use cards, engine building, resource management. These are all things that I enjoy and have seen before, and it seems like they fit together pretty logically. When it comes to investing in new games, I really have 2 kind of separate criteria. Number 1, does the game do something that I've never seen before? Does it take an existing mechanic or an existing idea and innovate it on a way that's not just a gimmick, that's actually functional and satisfying? If not, then number 2 is, well, if it's going to reference the pool of things that is the current board gaming landscape, then for sure it has to be better than most anything I currently already own or anything else on the market that I could invest in terms of direct competition. Reading through the rules, there's nothing sticking out as like, oh, I've never seen that before, or that doesn't quite make sense. I wonder how that comes together. It all seems very straightforward. Upon playing it, imagine my surprise when, wow, number 2 criteria of it better do it better than anything else I own or anything else currently on the market that I have access to. Oh my gosh. Honestly, y'all, it blew me out of the water. You can just stop the video right now and just go make sure you get a copy. But to get a little more into the specifics of why that is, I want to break this down into a couple of different categories and really dig deep here because there's a lot to unpack. The first thing that we'll just talk about is the components. Uchibacoya is known for having these amazing screen printed wood tokens. Those are absolutely freaking gorgeous. If you have eyes, you know. But I want to point out some other things about the production that even in this sample copy, I am just so enamored by unexpectedly. The resources are actually just a series of cubes that you have. So we have these little white cubes that are one resource. We have pink cubes, which are 5s, and blue cubes, which are 10s. And these resources go onto your player board in the specific row that they apply to. So wheat, wood, stone, or coins. As a fan of minimalism, I think that this was a really smart choice aesthetically. I think it fits with the game. Not only that, it provides a really nice balance and contrast to these really detailed wooden meeples. It really lets them shine as the star of the show in terms of what you're working towards. I was surprised at how functional just having these cubes was, because in other games, especially when you have a lot of resources that you're managing, if I have to trade in 6 wood and then I have to get 5 stone from that and spend 2 coins, I'm pulling and pushing so many different resources in and out. However, in this game, if I have to trade in 6 wood, a pink and a white cube, and then I get 5 stone, I don't have to put them all away and get a totally different resource onto my board. I'm like, 6? Okay, done. I spend the 1 and I move the 5 over to stone. Easy peasy. There's so many things to think about. The last thing I want to do is be inefficient, counting out tokens, what have you. It's also so nice because all the resources look the same on your player board. If I just take a quick glance, I don't have to count my specific wood tokens or say like, oh, I have a big stone and a small stone. Okay, that's this many. Just visually, it's so efficient. It just works so well with the game. I know I'm spending a lot of time talking about cubes, but really it's truly brilliant. And that's a little bit of that innovation that I was not expecting or looking for. There are those dual layer player boards, which are nice, but again, that could be like, oh, it's just overproduction. It keeps everything in place, which it does. But in Sweetlands, you have so many different player boards that you can try out. And these just slot into, like, they're double-sided too. And I'm sure there will be more when the full campaign launches. It just provides you so many different options and ideas for what you can do. Each of the boards has unique pass abilities as well as unique requirements for building that special ice cream building, unique scoring objectives, different starting resources and production values. And I find that in a large game like this, it can be very overwhelming to know what to do and to have a strategy right out the gate. But I think Sweetlands does a great job of having these unique player boards that give you a lot of really good direction without making you feel like you're pigeonholed into an exact strategy each time, because you do need to focus on all of those different elements in order to progress on any specific goal. I also want to talk about the overall flow of the game. The box does say 100 to 200 minutes, and that is fairly accurate. I would say playing it multiplayer and playing it 2 players, our games have been around the 2-hour mark, 3-hour mark for a learning game. And obviously with more players, that time will increase. The game is played over 5 rounds. I think with a lot of heavier games like this that have limited rounds, oftentimes you get done with round 1 and it's just preparation. You don't feel like you've accomplished anything yet. You've set your sights on those long-term goals for, okay, next round I'll get things started, and then by round 5 I'll be popping off. In Sweetlands, even in that first round, you start to see your city grow and build. You get to trigger combos with your citizen cards and those sweet tags and placing buildings to put them on tiles to get prosperity or income that then get you other things. Like, you already get little snippets of those combos. But along with that, you also see how it connects to those long-term goals of, okay, I got that building, I got that land, I got all these little goodies, but next round, I'll be able to turn all of that into a city. Or next round, those cards that I set up in order to do those actions, I'm going to be able to trigger as an engine. So there's a really unique balance of payoff right at the moment that you do the action, but also that long-term excitement and planning ahead. I do feel like the game comes together very intuitively. There's a certain flow to each turn and to the rounds that really feels like it builds momentum over time. There may be one turn where you set up a combo and you get like 7 different things. And then the next turn, you get a little breather of being like, okay, now that I've set that up, I'm just going to cash it in and take my stuff. It's got a nice ebb and flow to it that I think keeps you engaged without burning you out necessarily, but without just being like boring for parts of the game or large spans of times in terms of taking those passive or maintenance actions. The last big thing I want to comment about is the player count. It does play 1 to 4 players, and I think it's pretty viable at all those player counts, with the stipulation that yes, with more players, that will take significantly more time. I like the fact that the action board is a communal board where you have that worker placement, so you have quite a bit of friendly competition in terms of selecting certain actions at certain parts during the turn. turn. There may be an action you want to take, but you know somebody else wants to take that as well. So do you take it at a slightly less efficient outcome with your personal engine now? Or do you save extra resources to make sure that you can devote more citizen cards to taking an action second or third later in the round? With more players, you add more separate boards that let you copy actions on the main board. So that is very easy to set up. And the solo play is so great, at least in this iteration of the rules and with the sample copy. It just comes in 2 decks where you flip over 2 cards, and then those actions are blocked out from the beginning of the round, which really gives you free reign to run wild and free and just do everything you want to do. Pulling out the board here to get into some nitty-gritty specifics, I will say that the criticisms that I have, disclaimer, are about the prototype pre-production copy, so these may change, but as it stands right now, one of the things that I did find to be a little bit fiddly is the point scoring system. The track is very small, and each player has 3 tokens that they need to account for: your VP, your industry points, and your city points. Relative to the size of the various spots on the score track, they are quite large. The big thing that I did find with the gameplay that felt very counterintuitive and at times a little bit frustrating was the citizen card. While I love the cards and love that they are multi-use, there is a rule that you have to keep 1 citizen card in hand at all times until the very end of the game. So in rounds 1 through 4, you will always have 1 card left over that you cannot spend for an action, for resources, or purchase to put into play. I personally couldn't find any reason why that was required. And like I said, it did feel a little bit frustrating going through and playing, saying, oh, I have enough money for this card, or I could really use 1 more action. I have the card in my hand, but the rules say I need to keep 1 card from round to round. Therefore, I cannot do that. I'm curious to see whether that will change for the final copy. I think being able to hold on to 1 card from round to round really can give you a boost on long-term planning, or make it so that if you do have a card you can't afford in 1 round, that you could carry it over, but the requirement that you must felt very limiting and not in a good way. The last consideration isn't about the components or specific mechanics. The fact that the game is quite long and very involved, as you see here. I don't by any means think that that is a negative. I think that is what the game is intended to be, and I think it does it very well by keeping players engaged throughout the whole time and by having a lot of rules, flow, and iconography that help the game feel very natural and intuitive. However, the scope and length of the game are something to consider to see if it would be a good fit for your collection. Overall, I will say, if you are looking for a very satisfying, chunkier Euro experience with amazing flow from turn to turn and round to round, a unique theme, and amazing presentation that's not only aesthetically pleasing, but also extremely functional in terms of the mechanics of the game and your efficiency with your focus throughout the game, then I would absolutely recommend checking out Sweetlands. I have genuinely had such an amazing time learning, teaching, sharing, playing this game. And again, this is just a pre-production copy. So if any or all of that sounds good to you, which why wouldn't it, then you absolutely need to keep an eye out and grab a copy of Sweetlands as soon as you can. That's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, you can click the like button and subscribe down below for free. It helps out the channel hugely. Again, a huge thank you to Uchibacoya for providing a pre-production copy so that I can share it with y'all here today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.